Oh, tubby time! Yeah, baby. Look at that sucker. Got her on the big coalition gill. Come flying out of the, look at that hook, just pinned. There we go. Boom. Nice fish. Okay, so we got some nice pictures of this fish. I'm assuming she's gonna start bedding soon, so I'm talon down right where I caught her. I'm gonna try to get her back to where she came from. So. One last look. Big next gen belly on that girl. Oh, big wide one. Big bluegill profile swim bait. Not all that big, but perfectly replicating a real common size of the bluegills, which is a major forage for bass all year long, but especially this time of year. I'm just slowly cranking this thing. Just little wags. It's got a big paddle tail on the back. It doesn't take too much for it to really wag like that. So let's talk gear ratio and reels. I kind of want a little bit of a tween speed because, like I said, I don't want to be picking up too much line too fast with like an 8 or 9 or whatever. But I'm also in shallow water where there's a lot of cover around, so I gotta get them up and out of that quickly too. So I'm using a 7.5 to 1, which is very arguably close to an 8 to 1, but it's not an 8 to 1. I'm still able to, you know, it's up to me to keep that cranking speed slow, but I'm confident that I can really pick up speed and get fish out of cover too. The long rod comes into play for a couple different specific reasons. Kind of throwing a bigger bait. I've got a big hook on there, 7/0 thick HD hook on there. So I need to really hammer it into the bone of the top of the fish's mouth. And that is also an aid in getting the fish out of cover as well. I can get that tip up high, I can get the fish coming on its belly or pull them straight up and out of cover. So long rod paired with a 7.5 to 1 gear ratio reel, 50-pound braid, and then I got 20-pound fluorocarbon on there. Just a little aid in visibility, but again, braid to drive that hook home, braid to get them out of that cover, braid to get them in the boat. Okay, so I just got bit off by a pike. That's gonna happen. I've already lost 2 baits to pike. They're in here too, doing the exact same thing, feeding on these bluegills. Anyway, I thought it'd be a good time to talk about how you rig these baits. They look a little awkward, but they're really not. Also, lost both of my bluegill pattern swim baits, so I'm going to use a little 5 1/4 Banff shad. Pretty much the exact same profile, roundness of a bluegill, just a little bit more of an oddball color, which doesn't really bother me all that much. Slightly brighter in dark water can sometimes be beneficial. So I'm going to bust into this packaging. Okay, so 5 1/4 inch Banff shad. Just like that. How do you get a hook in this thing? So since this is slightly smaller, I went to a 5/0 trocar. It's just a swim bait hook. Here's the 7s that I ran out of. 3/8 ounce, 7/0 swim bait hook with a screw lock. All right, so this is how you rig the thing. You want to make sure you get your screw lock started nice and tight on the nose. That means you got to put pressure going into the screw in order for it to grab, and just kind of guide it along and make sure it's going in there straight and not off the side of the bait. Sometimes you can get a little bit too far to the side and that can rip out a little bit easier. So I like to screw it pretty much all the way down to the line tie of the hook. Now this basically just stuffs into the body and pops out the top like that. So as you can see, it's just hidden. The fish is going to push down on that, boom, big 5/0 heavy gauge trocar on the top of the mouth. And that belly weight is hidden in the belly. And that's how you do it. So now that we're rigged back up, let's see who's home. There we go. Oh yeah. There we go. Whew. In and amongst a bunch of bluegills. This whole thing is just surfacing bluegills. Like I said, similar principle with that bait. Nice little chunker. So the wind's kind of pumping into this bay, and a lot of times this time of year you're looking for like calm water and sight fishing, and basically what wind does is blows the bottom of the food chain into the backs of pockets. When the bottom of the food chain is in there, the top of the food chain is in there as well. So the wind blowing into these cattails, the bass are just sitting thick in those cattails waiting in ambush. So I'm trying to weasel my way into really tight spots where those bass can come out and snatch it. And the beauty of this too, like I said, I'm fishing right tight in those cattails. As you saw, that hook is just buried in the body of the bait. So if I mess up a little bit and cast literally in the cattails, I can kind of finagle it out of there until I get right tight to that spot. It's almost better because I'm making kind of a silent entry. Just kind of gently land in the cattails and then let it just drop instead of making a big splash. These baits are over an ounce, so they kind of tend to move some water when they land. So if you can be a little bit more stealthy by just kind of banking off the cattails, it helps because they're kind of spooky in shallow water. Big old pancake lands right on top of its head, it usually spooks out of there. So be mindful of that as well. The beauty of that is that you are able to do that without getting snagged. Nice one. Oh yeah. Oh, buddy. Yo! Another thick one. All of that come flying out of there. Oh, perfect. Oh, a lot of faith in that stout hook. There's another good one. Bait fish profile. Look at, she's still feeding up to dump eggs. Feeding up on bluegill, shad profiles like that. Doesn't matter where you live in the country. Either or of those are a great forage for these fish this time of year, so nice. Chunky one. Oh, and the cattails do not end. There's more fish to be had, so let's keep chunking.